Well, hello there, everybody. I'm Photo Dave, and if this is your first time on the channel, welcome to Toypixx. The idea here is that we're trying to all get better at action figure photography and then also discussing everything that entails. And some of what that entails? Rules about collecting our own beloved pieces of plastic. Trying to find out if that intro was cheesy enough or not, huh? Let's do this! First things first, these are my rules. I don't know your situation, and I don't pretend to want to force my rules on you. Only you know those things, and only you know what your rules for collecting should be. More importantly than that, come here, come here. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but don't let a bunch of nameless faces on some internet forum tell you that your rules are stupid. They don't know your situation either. Yeah. Now with all that out of the way, here are my rules for collecting action figures. So if you're like me, you have collecting rules in place to save you space and money. Yeah, so in this list, I'm going to go from the rules that save me the least amount of space and money all the way to the rules that, well, save me a whole ton of space and money. And the first rule is don't buy just to get that plastic crack fix. Yes, friends, we're all in a drought right now. It's just after the holidays, store shelves are empty, things are rough. Personally, I don't have any pre-orders coming in the foreseeable future. It's tough going. But I was in Target the other day, and this would have violated several of my rules. I saw a battle cat, an Origins battle cat, and I thought to myself, well, I do have an Origins He-Man, and He-Man needs Battle Cat, right? I mean, that's a good thing. He should have his trusty steed, if that's what you call a cat. Would you call a cat a steed if it gets ridden? I don't know where I'm going with that. But the point is, I put it down. I did hold it for a minute, but I put it down and I thought, no, I can't do this just to get the plastic crack fixed, because I know what would happen. In the future, I would be looking at that thing and I'd be thinking to myself, why did I buy that? Why don't I just get rid of this? Now I have to get rid of this. Now I have to go on, I have to take pictures, I have to sell it on eBay or see if I can get it for a decent trade, whatever. And that's what the future would have held for me. And I realized it and thought, no. Not only does it break a million rules, I'm not going to like it in the long run. Rule number 2, no $100 action figures. And yes, I'm just using $100 as a nice round even number to basically say, don't buy expensive army builders. I love heavily articulated stuff, right? Just, that's, as a photographer, that's big time for me. Love that stuff. It's great. But the fact is, even though SH Figuarts has a killer Stormtrooper, I love that Stormtrooper, I would love to get a crazy amount of that Stormtrooper. Star Wars Black Series made a pretty killer Stormtrooper. In fact, I've got a few of them and might even double dip on a few more repaints of it. And they're only $25. That SHF one, that's more like 60 or 70. So if you try and build an army of those, you're gonna save well, not a whole lot of money. Yeah. So there you go, no $100 army builders. The exception, of course, is this. I'm going to get into Diaclone this year, And by Diaclone's nature, they're supposedly just mechs that all come off an assembly line. The real characters in this aren't the robots at all, but the human pilots. So, in theory, or in practice, I guess, every single Diaclone you buy ends up being an expensive army builder. And there are a few that I want a few of. So, yeah, even with these hardcore rules, exceptions, man. Exceptions are gonna kill me. Mm. My third collecting rule: no figures based on animated or movie looks. Now, I'm just going to throw the exception out there now. Star Wars is obviously based around movies, and I digs me some Star Wars, so Star Wars, I'll take those movie looks. But when we're talking about things like Transformers or the MCU or DC multiverse type movies, well, with Transformers, well, I kind of grew to enjoy Optimus and Bumblebee's designs from the original three Michael Bay movies, and all the Transformers designs in the Bumblebee movie itself. That's a whole lot of money in space if you start loading up on those figures. You got Hasbro, you got 3 you got all kinds of stuff. Not to mention, if we're talking animated, you've got Super 7, which is just going totally animated style. And I'll admit now, animated's not really my thing. Even as a kid, I kind of understood that the reason that cartoons looked the way they did is because it made it easier to keep going with it. So the artists weren't having to sit there and draw all kinds of little details in them. So I'm not a big fan of the animated stuff anyway. But you've got all kinds of movie stuff, and I prefer more timeless designs as well. But that's not to say I don't like the look of a whole lot of MCU figures that are put out by a whole lot of companies. You've got, let's see, Hot Toys, you've got Sideshow, you've got SHF, you've got Mafex, you've got Hasbro's Marvel Legends, you've got all kinds of stuff that's really putting out great looking figures and all that. But if I were to go nuts and start going down those rabbit holes, that's a whole lot of money that I'd lose and a whole lot of space that I'd lose too. So, yeah, rule number 3: no animated or movie figures. Man, we're so close to the end. Here we go. Deep breath. My number 4 collecting rule: no waist cuts. As a photographer, I can't stand waist cuts because it basically takes the figure, and if you were to turn it at the waist, it would look like you glued the top half of it onto the bottom half of it, and it just doesn't look natural, and it drives me crazy. Now, how much money does it save me not getting figures with waist cuts? There's a whole line, an enormous line, that uses waist cuts. That line is Marvel Legends. Yes, friends, because of my no waist cuts rule, because of my no movie and animated looks rule, I have basically eliminated the need for Marvel Legends in the whole collection. And that saves me a ton of money and space. Now, if they ever get to where they get rid of the waist cut and maybe they add a few more accessories, man, I'm going to be hosed because now I'm going to start to load up on space and start not loading up on money. But yeah, that was a huge money saver, is realizing how much waist cuts drove me crazy and getting rid of not needing them, or getting rid of those and not needing Marvel Legends. Now the exceptions to the rule, of course, I did have a ton of Marvel Legends and I couldn't get rid of the Cowboy Logan because like there's only Mezco has really made a decent one, but it's just too big for the collection, I think. And I couldn't get rid of Stan Lee. And then there's two other exceptions to the no waist cut. My family got me Skeletor for Christmas, the Origin Skeletor. I'm like, oh man, now I have to get He-Man. So my entire Origins collection is Skeletor and He-Man, and they both got waist cuts. Whew! So I don't feel too bad about those exceptions. We're okay there. Now, let's get to big number 5, the one that saves me all the space and the monies. And now, it's time for the big one. Hooah! Okay, folks, here it is. This is the one that saves me all the money and all the space. And it's the one that I probably get the most crap for. I stick to 1/12 scale only. Yeah, I know. A lot of people get online and they flip out about that. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine being married to one scale and blah, 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 blah. But think of all the stuff that it cuts out. And before I start listing that, here are my exceptions. The first exception being Spawn. I don't see McFarlane licensing out his stuff. He's the only game in town that makes those figures. And frankly, I can kind of fudge them in with 1/6 because they're sort of more supernatural type characters. So I'm okay with that. Plus, they do look really cool. The next one is Transformers. Let's face it, if they made 1/12 scale Transformers, they'd be huge and no one would be able to afford or house them. But I do still need some robots in disguise. Diaclone also works in there. And then possibly, and I haven't gone there yet, but depending on how the photography evolves, I might get some really tiny vehicles. Like if I want a space battle with Star Wars or something, get a little tiny Falcon and a small X-Wing and some tiny TIE fighters, who knows. I might go there. I haven't gone down that road yet, but I might get there eventually. But now, let's look at the lines and all the space and all the money that this 1/12 rule saves me. I don't have to deal with any Super 7 Ultimates. I'm not saying I don't like the look. Some of them look very cool. I really dig their Turtles line. But I just don't worry about them. They're just not even on my radar. NECA, I don't deal with them. They're basically 1/10 scale. They don't have a lot of licenses that I really dig anyway, but I know that they have great figures. But with my whole 1/12 scale rule, don't go near them. What else? DC Multiverse. Yeah, don't go near them. Don't need them because they don't fit. They just don't fit kind of the 1/12 deal. You understand? Hot Toys, Sideshow. Don't need those. Then we get into Reaction, Star Wars Vintage Collection. Don't need those. Look at all the money and the space I'm saving by just saying sticking to 1/12 with those few exceptions that I mentioned before. That is the big rule. That's the big rule, like I said, that gives me a lot of crap, but it's the one that actually saves me from being overwhelmed and freaking out. Because I might freak out if I got all that stuff, because then what would I eat? I can't eat the plastic, and I definitely wouldn't have money for food. Yeah, that's the big one, folks. Nothing beyond 1/12 scale. So there you have it, folks. Those are my top 5 action figure collecting rules. And now, I want to hear from you. What are your rules? Why do you have them? Are your reasons the same as mine, where it's all about space and money? Or are there other reasons at play? Make sure, let me know in the comments. Let's talk. Let's have some fun. And if you're digging the content, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click like. And hey, if you're not digging the content, feel free to hit dislike too, because guess what? Even that helps me in the algorithm. Things are weird, man. Things are weird. Now, with that out of the way, that's all I've got. So, everybody, have fun. And as always, happy snapping. See ya.